Hello, friends. We have the 13th day of Russian aggression against Ukraine today, and it's a very tragic day. All these days have been extremely bloody and stressful and tragic, but today I decided to look at this conflict from a different angle, from the angle of casualties among civilians. And it's not just because I decided to do so, but the events of the last night and yesterday's evening, night, and this day were such that I had no other choice as to look at those. These are heartbreaking, and my next slide is gonna be just blank, empty, because if I put here images I have in mind, I don't want to expose your psyche, your mental health to looking at this, and it'd probably be banned by YouTube because the world doesn't like to speak about our tragedy and doesn't like to see this tragedy closely. I was just told this beautiful news that the UN has banned its employees from using the word war with regard to what's happening in Ukraine. They would rather prefer to call it nicely a conflict. A conflict, it's like, wife and husband, or a little skirmishes among kids that have not shared a toy. In the meantime, what happened here during the last 20 plus hours was Russian shelling of a bakery where people were preparing to make bread, and it was hit by a rocket. 13 people died at the spot. Then we had another news. Residential quarters in Sumy were bombarded. 16 bodies at least were extracted from the ruins. 2 of those are children, and there are pictures all over the Ukrainian segment of the internet with those bodies. I'm not gonna show you. Then there was a child in Mariupol who died from dehydration, starvation and dehydration, because she was very little, and her both parents were killed by a bomb, and she survived bombing but was left in the ruins or semi-destroyed apartment, and her body was found later dead. There are many other images I could show on this blank slide, which I will not. I will just say that this all reminds me of something we didn't pay attention to in the proper time, namely the war in Chechnya, which was the first Russian aggression after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the first case by which we should have been alarmed, because what's happening now in Ukraine is exact copy-paste practice from that war. The same children bodies, the same bombings of civilians, the same shooting at the columns of refugees, the same shameless bloodshed and shameless lie that this is all done in the name of peace, denazification, reconciliation, whatever BS is used to explain this. Here is another, maybe not so horrific image from the distance of a Red Cross bus that was carrying kindergarten teachers to take shift in the kindergarten, which is probably 24/7 orphanage kindergarten, or I don't know the details, but they were going to work to take care of the children, and it was like boom, straight direct hit of Russian shooting up from the tank or something that destroyed that bus together with the children who were in it. Here I will show you a very brief video just to give you the taste of what's happening. There are no really graphic images here, but it's shocking enough even without that. Um, yeah, you can see a civilian car stopped and being shot at by the armed vehicle that shows. Yeah. And one time was not enough. So 2 people who were in the car died. Luckily, there were no children. There were 2 aged people who just wanted to evacuate from their village. And the armored vehicle, you can see it's done its job, and it's turning around and just heading peacefully in the other direction, leaving the bodies. Then when these Russian criminals are taken captives by Ukrainian soldiers, they all start crying and saying, "Oh, we didn't know where we are. We thought we got lost. We were at the military camp on the territory of Russia or Belarus, and somehow we got these orders. We were confused. We didn't know what to do. We were under orders." But you can see from footages like this, and there are dozens of videos showing similar things, they are deliberately shooting at civilians. They are deliberately bombing residential buildings, residential areas. They deliberately destroy critical infrastructural objects, and the city of Mariupol, which is still suffering under the siege, is a bright example of that, because it's not only heavily bombarded, but the civilians have been repeatedly denied the exit from the city. Today was the 3rd attempt to make the green corridor for the civilians to leave the city. And as soon as the corridor was opened by Ukrainian troops, and the buses with people started to move out of the city, Russian troops used this gap in the protection of the city to sneak inside with their armored vehicles, and obviously they were stopped with the fire from Ukrainian side. They didn't succeed, but they broke again this peace agreement for the civilians to leave the city. And people are trapped there for the 8th day without electricity, heat, water supplies, communications. People are going crazy. People outside of Mariupol who want to know if their relatives are alive, they cannot possibly do that because the cell phones don't work, anything doesn't work. So far, for Russian humanity, and for Russian world, and for Russian beautiful Orthodox religion, Dobrotolubie, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, and all that bullshit that they have been feeding to the West. Excuse my language, but this is something that we need to make clear. This is country that kills. This is culture that has nothing human in it. And this is the real trial to humanity, if we will stop this monster or we will be complicit with it. Thank you very much.